All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'm going to take the roll. Brenda Marcy,
Here.
Kathy Meridian,
Here.
Cindy Osmond,
Here.
Ken Trester,
Here.
Jerry Donovan,
Here.
John Adams,
Here.
Richard Donovan,
Here.
Karen Doyle Homan,
Here.
Rich LeBombard.
Here.
I just like saying your name, Rich.
It's a fun name.
And we have, it's a fun name. It's like salsa. And then we have a new township manager, Joe Fry. I'm not sure if he's with us or not.
Hello,
but-
I'm here.
Hi, welcome.
Howdy, everybody.
He'll be
Thank
taking
you.
Griffin's spot, so he has big shoes, but we're happy to see you.
Thanks. I look forward to it.
And then we also have Craig Atwood from Allegan County Road Commission joining us. So I just wanted to put that out there. Are there any corrections to the minutes? And if there aren't any corrections, can I call for a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Marcy, so moved.
Seconded.
Seconded by Donovan. Moving on, are there any additions to the agenda? And if not, can I call for a motion to approve the agenda?
And then Holly, are you gonna do roll call for both at the same time? The vote.
Oh, do we have to do roll call for minutes?
Well, if you're gonna vote.
Yes. Oh, okay. My bad.
Well, it's okay.
Okay, so let's just do roll. I can just jump into roll call for minutes then.
Okay.
So do we have to make a motion to approve
Oh, wait.
minutes?
Didn't
No,
we
we
just do
just-
that?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so roll call to approve minutes. Brenda Marcy,
Yes.
Kathy Meridian,
Yes.
Cindy Osmond,
Yes.
Ken Trester,
Yes.
Jerry Donovan,
Yes.
John Adams,
Yes.
Richard Donovan.
Yes.
All right, I think we're good. Now I can move on to the agenda. Sorry, my Roberts rules are, I have training wheels on my Roberts rules, so just bear with me, everybody. Are there any additions to the agenda? Can I call for a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make it. Kathy Meridian.
Second.
Second. All right, any discussion? All right, do we need to do a roll for this? Or are we good?
Probably for everything that you make a motion on.
Roll.
Anybody
Okay, I see.
else want to chime
ahead.
in? No? Okay.
Nope, Cindy said do it. Okay,
Okay.
so roll call to approve the agenda. Brenda,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Okay, the agenda is approved. All right, let's move on at this time to public comments. At this time, I would welcome the public to comment and ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. Dick Waskin. Hi, Dick. I'm trying to unmute
There we
you.
go.
Aaron?
Thank
There,
you.
okay.
Hi, Dick Waskin, 6576 Heron Ridge Road. Saugatuck. First of all, just want to thank the committee for getting together and getting a move on these things and spending your time, working on this very important project. Our community has been kind of behind what many other communities around the state have been doing as far as non-motorized trails. And I think it's really important at this point in time to move things forward. I know the township has been very proactive about this. I know the city of Douglas has been very proactive about this. And I know now that we've got some new members on the Saugatuck Council that now have all professed that those new members have professed that they are very much in support of this. So I think that just after all the many years that this has been discussed and rediscussed, studied, plans proposed, engineered, I think it's probably now time to see if we can't move things forward, especially in the portion that is most concerned to me is the portion that is on the Blue Star Highway in the city of Saugatuck. I live just east of that portion and I cross that intersection multiple times a day. Find it very difficult during season, traffic-wise, to get in and out. Find it next to impossible if I'm on my bicycle or if I'm going for my morning run to really navigate that portion safely. So I really want to encourage the committee to see if we can't get something rolling even by this summer so that we can have at least some further safety things in place, especially at the intersection of Lake Street and the Blue Star. Would love to see some crosswalks put in there, both north and south and east and west, so the Blue Star can be crossed. And I certainly am in support of a light at that point in time, and then proceed with, as money, time, engineering permits, to complete that section of the Blue Star Trail through that portion. Over the years, we've heard a few members of the community being very negative about this, being very obstructionist about this. We've heard their arguments, they've been discussed. I think they've been pretty much debunked. So it's time to move on. And I'm really looking forward to this committee achieving that goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Are there any other members of the community that would like to speak at this time? Okay, let's move on. The public will have the opportunity to speak at the end of the meeting as well. Do we have any old business to discuss? If there is none, let's move on to our speakers. I just wanted to make some comments. When this committee reconvened in December, we talked about the economic benefits, the health benefits to the community, sort of the post-COVID hiking and biking surge. And we were also acutely aware in December of all of the difficulties that we have faced as a community. I mean, Dick spoke to that thoroughly. And it's definitely been challenging to try to connect this trail over the last 5 years. It's been a bit of an odyssey. And today, what I would like to see is us sort of having some context and remember that our struggles are not unique. Sort of structuring how we build this trail, developing our partnerships, developing local support. Those are all, the trials and tribulations of trails in other parts of the country and in our state. So I'm excited to welcome two Michigan trail directors from two different types of communities. Julie Clark is the executive director of TART, which is Traverse Area Recreation and Transportation. She's been in that position since 2010. Julie is active in trail development regionally and at the state level. She's chair of Michigan Trails and Greenway Alliance. And from what I understand, TART is a very well-respected, organized, extensive, well-run trail. So we're really happy to have her. Brian Lachelle was kind enough to join us. He is the very dynamic young director of Saginaw Parks and Rec, and also oversees the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail, which is a very popular 11.5-mile trail that took 6 to 7 years to build and has some interesting history, and also has a brewery popped in the middle of the trail, which I thought was ingenious. Both speakers are going to give some background on their trails, and they're not going to talk too long because they're going to open up Q&A. They're going to answer your questions. So I will let Julie go first.
Well, thank you, Holly. It is a pleasure to be here. I did come from Charlotte, North Carolina 10 years ago, and we were building trails there. I went from a community with 1 million people and almost 30 miles of trail to Traverse City, Michigan, with maybe 150,000 in the heat of the summer. And we had nearly, at that time when I came, 50 miles of trail on the ground. So we know how to do trails in Michigan. And I got to say that TART does know how to do it. It was a great opportunity for me to come to Traverse City and Michigan and out of the South and learn more. I'm a Midwestern gal at heart. I grew up in Lafayette, Indiana. So, but Michigan was never on my radar to live in. And I think that's actually important to say out loud. Because now I know what I was missing. And honestly, a lot of that has to do with the trail network here. My husband and I chose to come to Traverse City because of the grid network, because we could walk and bike wherever we wanted to go. We're a one-car family. We looked all around the country before we chose a place. And it was very important to me to have the water and the trails and good, clean air to breathe. And this is something that you all know very well, the resources that you have at hand. And I think the trail networks that are being built out that access those are a true, well, they attracted my family, and it's something that we need to think of from an economic development lens. I know our Chamber of Commerce is getting there. So before I go too much further, I'm going to share my screen because a couple of these, wait, host disabled participant screen sharing. Uh-oh. Aaron, can you help me come back?
I wonder if there's something else going on because I actually just got a message from someone that they just got kicked out of the meeting.
Oh.
So hang on a second, we might be having a little technical difficulty here. Let me see what I can find.
Well, and I'm going to keep just talking a little bit about trails because we did conduct a benefit study. It wrapped up, it's funny, 2020 has a way of messing with your mind. It wrapped up December of 2019. And we were really excited to kind of go out and share the good news, visiting with our local municipalities. We just never got the chance. But so I guess a little bit of framework on who TART is. We are a nonprofit trail organization who happens to own an 18-mile trail corridor. So we own privately the Leelanau Trail that connects Suttons Bay to Traverse City. Oh, there we go. I'm coming in. Thank you, Aaron.
I think I had too many hosts.
Too many cooks in the kitchen. That we can talk about how that affects trails too. All right, I'm going to present view. And I'm hoping that you can all see it load, apparently. Oh, goodness. I'm going to.
I am seeing it. Well, I was seeing it.
You were, but then it decided to, how's that? Better? Is that there? You got the last slide
There
though,
you go.
so.
Yes,
right, don't get sick. Close your eyes. Okay. Now you can see it for real. All right. So TART, we are a nonprofit group. We own a rail trail line. That was because nobody wanted it. No government wanted it. The state didn't want it. It was an old rail trail, a privately owned rail trail. And a group of citizens in Leelanau County wanted to protect that corridor once they learned that the rail company was going to sell it off. Took about 10 years to secure the corridor. And the group went all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court in order to get that trail, permission to build that trail. And who were they fighting? They were actually fighting the county and the township. There was one township who kept, the way we got to the Supreme Court was over zoning. And to this day, it's a rather tense relationship. It's not easy to improve the trail through that township, but we're growing. So there was an intense battle in the 90s to get that corridor established. At the same time, there were other organizations working on rail with trail. Traverse City has the distinction of having the first non-motorized rail with trail that goes along the MDOT owned corridor between Traverse City and the resort out in Acme. And that was, again, volunteer led. We changed legislation to allow MDOT to be able to build within their rail corridor. And we have a great system today that makes about 24 miles of trail. This is our network. We have about 100 miles of trail. When I came on, I think we were a little over the 50-mile mark. And the big trails that have been added would be the Sleeping Bear Heritage Trail out here in Leelanau County. That's through the National Lake Shore. We did complete paving 6 miles of the Leelanau Trail. And that's, again, what TART owns and operates. And we built a different kind of trail, a foot trail, the Boardman River Trail, that makes connections to a whole network between the Vasa Pathway and the Boardman Lake Trail. So we have a bit of a spaghetti network here in Traverse City that makes up about 100 miles of trail. This yellow line that you see here is called the Nequema Trailway, and that is an effort underway. That's about 46 miles of proposed trail that will connect to Charlevoix, and then that leads to the Top of Michigan Trail System, where when we close that gap, it'll be a 325-mile connected network in northern Michigan. So we're pretty excited about that. I did share a little bit that we had done a benefit study because, right, one of the questions is, okay, these are really expensive pieces of infrastructure. What do you get out of it? And so we did a pretty in-depth study. We hired the University of Florida to come up and conduct a study on the health and economic benefits of trails in Leelanau County. And so the two trails were the Sleeping Bear Heritage Trail and the Leelanau Trail. And what we found is confirmation of, I think, what many trail advocates think, is that trails are good for business. They drive economic development, especially in the shoulder seasons. We saw that specifically on the Heritage Trail, where they are now able to have additional business in, frankly, the times of years not heavy with tourism. Tourism is a dirty word in Traverse City. If I say I'm going to build a trail for tourists, nobody wants to hear that. And in fact, we don't build trails for tourists. We build trails for our residents. And it happens that tourists love to be on the trails that our residents love. So economic development was really important, but I can tell you that it was still important on the Leelanau Trail, which had a higher percentage. 3/4 of the people using the Leelanau Trail are residents, year-round residents. And we were still seeing about $100,000 worth of direct economic input annually. Now, the Heritage Trail, which is more tourist-based, was strikingly different. That was generating about $3 million annually in direct economic development. So significant drivers to our local economies. We did a lot of interviews with businesses, and actually what was more important to many of those businesses, besides driving business to them, was the community, that sense of an outdoor community that helped them sell their business. So having the Heritage Trail and the Leelanau Trail there were about an identity. They were able to sell their businesses as part of this great outdoor network, active, healthy lifestyle type of community. And that was not only important for driving people through a door, but also attracting workers. That was a big component that came out, which was really exciting to hear because, again, many of us may think that, but it's nice to have it actually said by the business owners themselves. A lot of our wineries and breweries definitely depend on the traffic of the trails, and they have come to be great partners with TART. The other piece that was really important that got drawn out in this study are the health benefits. And again, it's not only the perception that these trails provide healthier opportunities, but it's also our physicians were very much saying that because these access was there free for all, they saw a direct impact on the community health aspect. So it was an all around study looking at economic and health benefits, and we got some really good data out of that. Holly mentioned COVID, and wow, if we didn't have trails in the time of COVID, would have been a lot harder road to hoe. We found trail use increased over 30% on our trail network. We do have counters out there. So we have a good handle on who's on the trail. We do surveys every year. So we know why they're out there. And we did work very closely with all of our partners to make sure that, traffic stayed safe. There was a big fear that trails would have to be shut down. And we worked very closely with our health department and with our communities to make sure that we were getting the messaging out there to stay safe so we could stay open. And I'm happy to say we did. And we haven't seen traffic slow down yet. I'm going to share just one story because after talking to Richard and Holly, one of the things I think is helpful to know is that trails are complicated and they require a lot of hard work. I can't see everybody, but I would love to know, how long do you think a trail takes on average to build? What's average time it takes to get a trail on the ground? 7 years? Richard, what do you think? I see you on my screen, so I'm calling on people I see.
Yeah, for a completed trail like the Blue Star, which is supposed to be 20 miles, that could take 20 years, I bet, from start to finish. And we've already been working on it for almost 10 from the time it started.
Okay, I've got some seasoned veterans here, and that's good. Having realistic expectations is good because the story I'm going to share with you is a trail that is 30 years in the making. And I mean that it's not just like we've been thinking about it for 30 years, we've been working on it for 30 years. So I'm going to share the story of the Boardman Lake Loop Trail, and I'll be brief with it. I won't go into too much detail, but kind of back to the kicking off of it all. This is one of my favorite quotes that came out of the outreach that we did for the Boardman Lake Loop Trail. And McKeel Haggerty of Haggerty Insurance, which is, I think, our second largest employer here in the region, spoke of why Haggerty invested their dollars into the Boardman Lake Loop Trail. And it's because it's about people. And it's one of my favorite things to think about, is because I think sometimes we get wrapped up in all the permitting and all the work that it takes to get a trail on the ground that we forget why we started in the first place. And it's at its core about people, because trails really don't matter unless people are on them and using them. They're great, otherwise they're ribbons of asphalt that go nowhere and serve nothing. We don't want those. So the Boardman Lake Loop, just to give you some context, sits within the heart of Traverse City. This is Boardman Lake. The Boardman River is here, and then Lake Michigan, or Grand Traverse Bay, is just out here. And to the south, the Boardman River continues and loops all around. As I mentioned, this is 30 years in the making. One of our founders, TART founders, had this vision of a trail all along the Boardman River. That vision turned into a master plan. That master plan turned into city CIPs, township CIPs. and eventually turned into trail on the ground. This trail has it all. It has multiple jurisdictions. So right where my cursor is, this is the jurisdictional boundary between the city of Traverse City and Garfield Township. Those two places are situated within Grand Traverse County. We have a park, a Grand Traverse County Park, that is nestled here at the south end, and then city parks at the north end. We have the NMC University campus, which is its satellite campus to the south. This is a pretty industrial area, and then these are all neighborhoods to here. Our library is right here. Our downtown Traverse City is right in here. So it really does provide some great connections. It's a wonderfully wooded area. It was also a very polluted area. As we know, you can see a rail line. Back in the day, rail lines led to things that maybe we wouldn't accept today. And that's a lot of industry dumping. So we had a lot of tanneries that lined our lake. We have a Superfund site right here. So again, you name it, we got it. We have residential right along there. We have a Superfund site. We have parks and we have institutions and we have multiple jurisdictions. Now, from the beginning, from those 30 years ago, this project was always a joint effort between the city, the township, and the county. So much, in fact, that they would contribute that way. The history of this east side is that there was a third split that would match grants. In particular, the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund was the primary driver. Now, these plans, we got some good traction back in the early 2000s. There was a lot of legwork done to secure easements. TART was part of securing these easements. We got up to the library, that was good. In 2008, we made it over the river with a new pedestrian bridge. And then in 2014, again, TART led an effort here because we had to secure easements because there were some very unhappy homeowners right here. So we worked with them to get an alignment that worked. In 2015, we applied for a coastal zone management grant, rewrote a brownfield plan, and were able to secure brownfield dollars and the coastal zone management grant in order to figure out what the next leg looked like. Because we left the best for last. It was really hard. The topography here is insane. It's very tough. You are on a rail corridor. There is no land to work with. There's private land and NMC, and then private. This is all wetland. And again, the topography is from way up to way down. And you have river restoration happening at the same time. So in 2015, we kicked off a process that led us to a preliminary design. So we went through a bunch of different alternatives. And this is one of the keys for us was a lot of listening to the communities to talk to us about the value of the trail. Not necessarily, we actually didn't allow our consultants to put pen to paper until we heard values. We wanted to know what the trail meant to people. What did they really want from it? Access to nature, access to waters, ability to exercise, to feel safe. We didn't ask about, what amenities, did you want fishing or anything like that? We just spoke to values. Then the consultant got to work. We had a TAP grant that wound up coming in and did give us this kind of wonky alignment here that goes along Cass Road. Because TAP said, well, this is too pretty and it doesn't make connections. And so we want to see you connect over here to the beta station. This is a word of warning. Our government partners, they have a lot of say and a lot of sway in how you build trails. So that's something to be prepared for early on, get them involved because they can change an alignment. So this was adopted by the county, the city, and the township in 2016, I believe. The preliminary and preferred alignment was done. This cove crossing here was rather remarkable. It's a unique design and very, very difficult to build, it turns out. So we spent the next couple years working on budgets. Now, this is always fun. I'm giving you the pie chart. The project was proposed at a little over $5 million, which doesn't include, so almost 6 million technically. That included an $800,000 maintenance endowment. So this Garfield Township said, we don't want to participate in construction. We want to pay for maintenance. And so they did. They set aside $800,000. We are going to put it at the community foundation where it will be an endowment for the long-term maintenance of the trail, not for capital replacement, but for reoccurring and long-term maintenance to give that trail the 50-year lifespan that it should have, but it can only have if you actually maintain the trail. We have found that it's been very difficult between the county and the city and those. One of our county supervisors once said, the bureaucratic salute that happens. We wanted to avoid that. So we wrote a maintenance plan and Garfield Township agreed to fund it. Now I mentioned the brownfield dollars, those became very important because that's what's making up the majority of this funding picture. We did secure a TAP grant, some trust fund grants, and then the private side. TART came in with, we're well into the 430,000+ right now. So there is private matching there as well. Oop, sorry, went too fast. So we had it all together. We listened. One of the things that I guess I want to express is that we do it Chicago style here. We listen early and often. It's one of those things you can't listen enough to people and then try and take what you hear and actually implement it. So there's the listening part and then there's the reflecting part. And again, that's why we did the public input the way we did, is to make sure that when design changed, because when you have a lag in time, design will change. I'm going to flip back just to the map. There was a lot of discussion about cutting things out when budgets got tight. Where we kept coming back to as a leadership team, and the leadership team was TART Trails. We formed this purposely. TART Trails took the lead on this, but we had, for 3 years, we met monthly with the county, the city, the township, one official from each. It was the manager, city manager, township supervisor, TART, and then I guess there was another city rep there. So city, county, township, TART. And every Friday, every Thursday, once a month, we would review what was happening on the trail, what roadblocks we had, what opportunities we had. When it came down to, hey, the budget seems out of whack, how do we cut things? Normally what would happen is the city engineer would go in and just X things out and kind of he ran the show. In this case, it was a leadership decision. That's where the decision landed, not in the city engineering office, but on that leadership team. And what we kept going back to were the values. So if we cut something, how would that affect what people wanted? If we changed design, which we had to change design, this original concept had it on the east side, we moved it to the west side. It didn't change the value, it just changed the number. We were able to build a cheaper trail. So having those conversations and partnerships was key because, like I said, we got this approved like shortly after 2016, I think was when we got it approved. We have just started this leg of construction. That went under construction in 2020. It was put out to bid in 2019 and it came back 55% over budget. MDOT asked, this is the MDOT section, and they said, well, you know, that's fine if you want to do it, but it's all on your own dime. We chose not to. We chose to go back, reject those bids and redesign. It took another year. And we went out this past summer, and this was let. So in May, this project, we got bids back on. So just from here to here was put under construction. here's the fun fact. The bids, because we adjusted the budget, they're the same amount as the low bid that was 55% over budget. So welcome to building trails in 2020. They're not cheap. We just put this leg out to bid after a year struggle. There was big concern here. This is where the power of the teams became crucial. We had infighting, right? Garfield and the city stopped talking to each other. They were at war on another issue. It got tense, but those leadership team meetings were a place where it was a safe space. It was a safe space to talk about the issues that were really underlying issues, had nothing to do with the trail, had everything to do with the trust between the partners. And so on one occasion, I let the city manager and the township manager come into our office early. I shut the door and I said, you have a half an hour to figure stuff out. We'll be back and start the meeting after that. And we made it. We have hit every roadblock you can imagine. We have hit Eagle permitting issues. We have hit, I will say the public input, it's not perfect. One of you was speaking to, we've heard, the concerns and you got to move on. And that is absolutely true. At some point in time, you do have to move on, but you got to make sure you address them the best you could and that you honestly took them in, you heard them, and you reflect back what you're doing to address them or why you're not addressing them. Don't duck and cover. There's no point. So we are excited. We are scared to death because this section that's out to bid is either $81,000. If we go by the budget, it's either $81,000 over budget, which TART has raised that money and will be prepared to help fill the gap. Or according to the engineer's estimate, it's $800,000 underfunded. So that's fun. That'll be a decision that we talk about. What happens if it's $800,000 over budget? And so we did just have a meeting back to that leadership team to say, what are you going to do? And we all walked away saying, we're in it deep now. So we got to figure out a way to go, just like in the old days, back to everybody's pitches in. Everybody has to put more money on the table because we're not walking away. Now, ask me in 2 weeks what happened, how this went out to bid, and if we're all still talking to each other. I will tell you, there were weeks that went by that we didn't talk to each other. We were so angry or so upset that we didn't have the ability to have a rational conversation, and so we didn't. And we let things simmer down, come back and try to find solutions. We were all doing this because we heard loud and clear, and I'm going to be very blunt. TART took the lead on the public input because we didn't want it to be about what the city residents wanted or what the county residents wanted or what Garfield wanted. We wanted to be community voice, one community voice, not pitting each other against each other, but to find that one community voice. We have an issue. We went to town, we really went to bat, got our Garfield Township residents really excited about this section that heads down. And the township made a decision in May not to pursue this section. So we turned down a TAP grant that we had to not do this because we weren't sure about the funding and we wanted to prioritize the loop. And so we do have to address this and we will have to talk about it. We've mentioned it just quietly, but it will be something that we will be reaching out, especially to the people who worked so hard to get the additional funding, because this time last year, we were in hey, we need 200,000 more to close the gap. The township board had committed to it, but now we can't build it. So I guess my message here is shoot happens, right? This stuff it moves until it's done. And frankly, I won't sleep until I am sitting, probably with a bottle of whiskey in my hand, on this cove crossing right here. And I will say that the city manager, the township manager, and the county administrator will all be right with me, passing that bottle with paper cups and safely distanced as we toast to what has been a very long, very difficult, but also really fulfilling project. To me, the secret of trail building is the triple P. It's persistence, it's patience, and it's passion. And not everybody around the table has to have all of those, but to get a trail on the ground, you have to have a team that has all of those qualities, because trails, they're built kind of by the community, for the community. Having people around the table, making sure those conversations, nobody's surprised, because we all hate surprises. We had our DOT and our road commission. I'm glad to hear there's somebody on the road commission here. Those are such incredible partners to have, to be aware of what you're doing. It's not easy work. It's not even technically like hard work, right? I'm not saying it takes a brain surgeon to do this, but it's master puzzle making. That's what trails are about. It's like dumping a 5,000 piece puzzle on the table. And you could just be like, oh crap, I'm out. That's too much. Or, you call in the kids to help you put the right pieces. You get your corner pieces all nailed down. And then it's one by one, you put the pieces together. And in the case of the Boardman Lake Loop Trail, 30 years is a long time to be working on a trail. But the passion that this community has is what's going to make it get done. It's not the leadership at the top. As much as, I want to give kudos to TART or to the county, and we have great administrators and great leaders. It's the community. They decide what gets done. If you listen to them, they can help you get it done. And they're the ones that have been pushing this. They're the ones that, pull the political levers if they need to. They're also the ones putting their dollars into it. That's where TART comes in, and their passion. We have volunteers out there every day taking care of the trails. They're out hiking this Boardman Lake Loop, picking up trash. We have beautification projects. These trails, when they're built by the community, they're cared for by the community. And it's a very different feeling than where I came from in the South. It felt like a government kind of issued, we loved our trails, but I would get calls and they would say, hey, there's trash on the trail. Can you send your crew to come pick it up? In TART world, we don't even answer the phone until the third phone call for a tree down, because somebody's already gotten to it. People, community members take such pride in their trails. That has been one of the, I think, the results of having engaged the community really well and let them take the lead on a lot of these efforts, getting them around the table to be part of the planning effort means they're going to stay around the table and take care of this stuff. And the passion that they have, they don't ask for somebody else to do it. They do it with you. So that's the story of the Boardman Lake Loop Trail. I really want to give you a conclusion in like 2 weeks, because I'm done. I don't want it to be a 40-year project. I want it to be a 30-year project and be happy with that. So that's my story. Sticking to it. And I'm happy to answer any questions or turn it right over to Brian, however you guys want it to go.
Thanks, Julie. Wow. I mean, I think we can relate to a lot of what you talked about. I felt that. I felt some of the things that you said, especially the master puzzle making. So just thank you for your honesty. I'd like to go to Brian and have him talk, and then I'd like to open up for questions, for Q&A to both of you. So does that work, Brian?
It does, yeah. And I'm not sure who has the meeting host, but I joined off my laptop. So there's a second me. If I could have screen sharing, that would be great as well.
Did I get the right one?
Let's see. No, it'd be the other one. Sorry about that.
Nope, no problem.
Quick story while we're getting that taken care of. My wife and I were married in 2017. And we did the delayed honeymoon, going to travel a longer period later in the summer. So we did a little mini moon long weekend in the Traverse City area. And we are, recreational bicyclists, I'd say, but we were able to find a great Airbnb just on the outside of Traverse City with a connection through the backyard, right to it was a mile into downtown Traverse City. And then we were right on the Leelanau Trail. And so one day we did the 17-mile all the way out to Sutton's Bay. Few wineries along the way. We had lunch in Sutton's Bay or dinner it must have been. And we're sitting on the beach and having a great time. And we missed the bus that would have taken us and our bikes back. We missed the last one. So our 17-mile ride turned into a 34-mile ride for the newly wed couple that had sore butts for the rest of the honeymoon. But lends itself to this discussion in your community. I know certainly being a tourism driven at certain points, trails are drivers of economic development, as Julie mentioned, and as you'll realize as you continue to make these key connections, not just in maybe the prime downtown of Saugatuck where you have likely thousands and thousands of visitors, but being able to travel the few miles to Douglas or other areas will. The easier you make that for pedestrians, the more the business community and others are going to love it. So I'm going to talk to you today about the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail. And so I'm just going to pull up a rough map of that. And this is a trail that did take 7 miles or 7 years to physically construct, but the acquisition took 7 before that. And planning and things were ongoing. So well over 15 plus year process. And in the early stages, a nonprofit organization was established, Friends of the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail, to explore the possibility of turning this abandoned rail corridor into a non-motorized pedestrian pathway, and including the fundraising for those local match dollars that are needed for a lot of these state grants. So in the beginning, a 9.5 mile, 3-phased process, which included a lot of public input, but support grew. And again, this is kind of early 90s. So this is before you're seeing trails in every community, and certainly even rail trail projects were few and far between then. And so although there was great support, both in this nonprofit organization and in the kind of folks that were advocating for it, but also in the community, supporters came out. However, once you get into those local township meetings where you're saying, this is what we're going to do with that rail corridor in your backyard, it's certainly notable to mention that it wasn't, and it will never be, with unanimous support for a project. Early comments on the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail were, oh great, a trail network for home invaders to travel from backyard to backyard. In some contentious meetings with opposition in that regard. But I think, again, perception is one thing, and hearing and listening is another. And so the meetings continued, and support continued to grow, and ultimately that persistence paid off, and the positive support far outweighed any negative comments that were coming in. And so the initial phases began. And as those phases began and a 9.5 mile trail was created, the Parks Office started receiving phone calls. Do you know of any homes for sale along the rail trail? My family's moving to the area, Julie, or I'd love to get out of town and to be on this pedestrian pathway would be fantastic. And they were relatively frequent early on, and we still get some even still. Folks that know we have staff out there regularly to if we hear anything of a home going up early, give them a call. Call us back if you know of anything. And so, again, this is St. Charles, which, if you're familiar with Saginaw County, an urban and suburban population in the city of Saginaw and then Saginaw Township, about 100,000. but then another 100,000 residents spread across 800 square miles. So it gets quite rural and urban in these outlying areas, including St. Charles. But this is a 9.5-mile trail that then connects into, this was the original endpoint here on Strobel Road, and that's about 2 miles from Saginaw Township, City of Saginaw. And so the last phase was this Strobel Road connection here, which was a road right-of-way side path, essentially built in folks' front yards. So another contentious project with those folks. However, most have seen property values increase specifically due to the trail, even before markets were starting to come back. Having that connection of connectability in your literal front yard was a nice thing for folks and their properties. And so then it comes up along Center Road. Let me see if this will switch here. This is the Center Road Bridge across the Tittabawassee River. This was a $900,000 project and a pedestrian bridge attached to the side paired with a bridge project, a reconstruction. But I just wanted to show that one as well, because I know a key piece of your upcoming work is bridge related. So as the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail kind of came to fruition, this group that had advocated tirelessly and fundraised, instead of hanging up their fundraising hats and riding the trail they literally just built, they said, well, what can we do next? And so they actually funded a tri-county path study in the mid-2000s, focused on connecting Saginaw Valley Rail Trail to Midland County's Pere Marquette Rail Trail, which goes from Midland all the way out past Clare, and Bay County's Great Trail System along the Saginaw River. And so a tri-county path study was done in 2008, and that was right around the time of a regionalism push came to our region, and the Great Lakes Bay region was established, Saginaw Bay and Midland, and now a few other counties in that as well. But it kind of grew into this larger vision of connected trail path. So you can see here is the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail down in starting in southern Saginaw County up into, you have the Pere Marquette here from Midland out, and then the Bay County system here. And so from this path study, a prioritized list of connector projects was established. And this map is actually a couple of years old, but it shows one of the first ones, the Bayzil Rail Trail, extending from Saginaw County into Bay County. And now this section is connected as well. And there are additional phases ongoing from Freeland here. They've built east to this point, and there's another connector coming next summer to get us here, as well as work being done between Freeland and Midland. So the work, as truly indicated, doesn't stop oftentimes. And once you get this fantastic section of trail built that you've identified, there will likely be 2 or 3 more. So if you're not in it for the long haul, start to find some more folks that'll continue your positive momentum. But I just wanted to, I guess reiterate, I was somewhat familiar with Saugatuck, but did a little bit more research specific to trails, and with the pieces you have in place, and specifically with the Friends of the Blue Star, I think that's advocating grant writing, fundraising, those kinds of things. I know you're on the right track, and I guess that persistence piece, I would reiterate that Julie mentioned, to continue on. I'll show you this regional trail map. There's kind of a little more interactive one that was built via Google Maps, and that one is coming up now. So again, to orient yourself, Pere Marquette, Saginaw Valley Rail Trail. And as you zoom in, so we'll go to the Bay County section, you can see that connection built into Saginaw and Bay. This will be the section that will ultimately link Freeland to Bay County, Tittabawassee Township. That would be Garnett's old stomping grounds, council member. And then this piece here, working to connect in pedestrian bridges along the way and all sorts of unique things. But the regional trail foundations have been especially willing to partner with a 501c3 group, as opposed to funding a community or municipality directly. A lot of times it's a little cleaner for those foundations, or even sometimes private companies, to partner with that nonprofit organization. Just a neat map I wanted to share there. One other example I wanted to mention, and I had it worked into my notes a little bit better, but my brother lives in Kalamazoo, and he's a year-round commuter by bicycle. And they had for almost 10 years in Kalamazoo a opposition to a downtown connector because it was losing, it would ultimately eliminate 10 parking spaces. I think I can stop my share now. And the advocacy to try and get that done went through a lot of different phases, but one that I wanted to share that was a unique implementation that they tried before the trail itself was actually constructed, the connector route. They did what was called a pop-up bike lane or a pop-up bike route, and they partnered with municipalities, with the road commission or MDOT or who's ever various to do some actual lane shifts, to bring in cones to separate off where the bike path or side path would be. And they actually got old eaves trough, and they planted them with flowers and lined that along this 2-mile route through the city. And so specific to the bridge, I wanted to mention that because it could be beneficial if you're considering option A, B, or C. And I don't believe you have construction lined up this summer. You could potentially look at that layout and what that might look in different traffic times or different times of the year, that kind of thing. So I wanted to mention that as well. Yeah, and I think in terms of, community benefit, it's huge, especially during the pandemic. Julie mentioned as well, traffic has not decreased on the trails. In fact, it's increased. Before, on a Tuesday, if it was a sunny night, maybe at 6 o'clock in April, we'd have, half a parking lot. Well, we started seeing that at 10 in the morning, 11 in the morning on a Tuesday, folks coming out and getting a break from remote work or getting out of the house. And trails and green spaces being called out as one of those allowable activities, even early in the pandemic, further solidified that infrastructure being so important for communities. So we were happy to, have and provide those services here in Saginaw. Yeah, I think I went through most. The Kalamazoo connector got established as well. Now my brother's biggest complaint is like when there's maintenance vehicles parked on the trail route, and he's got, it's never perfect, but typically they always end up with happy endings, which I'm sure you're going to see from this group's hard work paying off. So I'll keep my comments, I guess, relatively short, and would be happy to talk through any questions folks might have, or for Julie as well.
All right, thank you both. I love that we have two very different communities in Traverse and Saginaw, and some similarities with our community. I feel like our struggles are more in context now. So with that, I'd like to open Q&A up to committee members. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask?
Did you have any difficulty in picking the engineering firm? We're at that point, I guess, we're going to be looking at 6 firms and blah, blah, blah. And are there any warnings or advice you have on that part? Either one of you.
I'll just go first because mine's relatively easy. We have almost exclusively utilized a group, well, that's larger than Saginaw, but has their headquarters here in Saginaw. And they're now president of the company, who, 20 years ago was an engineer with the firm, was himself a passionate advocate of Rails to Trails projects, and was, an early member of that Friends group, and, certainly still had to and have to go through competitive bid processes with the municipality. But anytime we can use Spicer here in Saginaw, we're happy to do so. And that's because, again, of their and their employees' dedication, not just to a project that they're assigned and paid for, but getting the broader picture and helping to drive these community connections. You want a business that's community oriented, and that's what we found.
Thank you.
And we don't have that luck here. We don't, I would say just be prepared that they're not going to be everything all the time to you, no matter what you hope and dream for. So to have some realistic expectations. understand that it's super expensive. And if you pursue things like MDOT dollars, understand you're going to pay, there are costs associated with certain grant dollars. So I think people are sometimes sticker shocked by engineering fees. I know we are at times, but you know, it's a reality. I look for the engineering firms that talk about listening and talk about community engagement and understand that. And one thing that I brought with me from North Carolina that I think is super important when you're looking at an engineering firm is having a landscape architect there as well. Engineers can do anything and build anything, but sometimes the look and the feel is not the first thing. So landscape architects have been critical to how we build trails over the past 10 years.
Wow, that's a great point. Brian, I had a question for you. I understand that the Center Street Bridge has a lot of traffic. It might be similar, I guess, in traffic to the Blue Star Bridge. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, you know, the Saginaw Valley, the rail corridor of the Saginaw Valley Rail Trail, the county purchased, owns and operates and was able to build on. Once we hit Strobel Road, we worked with the road commission to get across to Center Road. And then that's where Saginaw Township meets James Township in this instance. And the township were early advocates of trails. They have a few non-motorized pedestrian, and they recognize that connection up center being important. And so they worked with the road commission, paired it with a bridge reconstruction project, and you know, essentially added that span on the side of the bridge. The bridge itself, though, I think from looking at photos, is much narrower than the Blue Star. It's only a 2-lane with maybe 3 feet of shoulder on each side. So there's not, it's a pretty tight bridge and was especially dangerous for pedestrian traffic. And so I think that lent itself to some of the grant support needed on, like I said, and this was in, probably 2008 or so. And even at that time, it was $1 million. So you'd be talking about a $2 million project probably today. But it was an MDOT grant, and then Road Commission participated in some of the funding, as well as Saginaw Township. And I think have some of those plans, but you know, bridges especially, and to construct something like that and bring it in, extremely expensive. The estimate of, well, 10 years ago, $250,000 a mile, kind of accounted for bridges and things like that. It's significantly higher than that to build now, especially a significant span bridge. You'd be talking about
And you ended up building sort of a separate bridge for the trail?
It is separated, so you have the guardrail of the concrete of the bridge, but then the bridge piers extend out past, and they literally brought a crane in and set a separated bridge, but they're connected, if that makes sense. They're just separated by a concrete wall.
Okay.
You both mentioned the importance of getting public input. What did you find was the most effective way to do that? I mean, all of our meetings have been open to the public, like this one is, and there's been a fair amount of public discussion. But what did you find was effective to get useful, constructive input?
A lot of our any grant that we apply for, whether it's a playground or any trust fund grant, requires at least one public meeting. And I think if 2020 has done, I guess the Zoom function for the ability to someone to just carve out that 10 minutes to jump on a Zoom call rather than having to come down, make it as easy as possible, I guess would be my first suggestion. And whether that's speaking publicly, some folks are comfortable doing that and appearing, whether it's in Zoom or at a public meeting in person. Surveying is definitely also an option, where you kind of broadcast that out a little bit. And, the trust fund requires, I think it still is, post it in the local newspaper that you're having this public meeting, but recognizing that that might not be where folks would see and want to attend. And so we've utilized Facebook marketing or advertising dollars to try and drive a little bit of public comment to those. Yeah, I think the way you advertise or market it could be considered and posted in, in different online groups, that kind of thing.
I would say, Richard, for us, it was utilizing the networks of folks. So your group, your group spreading the word is really important. We had in the Boardman Lake Loop hundreds of people each time we had a meeting, not even always having food. It's amazing. You don't need food. But one of the things I think that worked really well is we had something called a stakeholder group. And we've consistently done this. I brought this habit from North Carolina with me. We invite people who will either be advocates or anti. We want to hear the people who don't want to have this trail or are going to have comments about the trail around the table in the beginning. So people that weren't always, the friendlies, we started a group there. And we brought them along the whole way through design. And that group was utilized not only to get direct feedback, so we knew those concerns before they became like public battles. Those were great opportunities to hear specifically, but also to utilize their networks, to get people, their job was to provide input and to communicate with their network groups. So we might have a watershed center on there. We had TC Tourism on there. We had homeowners. We made sure we had homeowner associations, or if they weren't an association, at least somebody who said they would be willing to reach out to the neighborhoods and through more informal communications, because leaving it all to, just more those, city kind of avenues, who goes to the city website to, find out what's happening, not many. So we really did utilize the trail, our TART network, as well as those stakeholders. They became critical and they became our biggest supporters through the end, and helped us secure more money, frankly. We had to go back and ask for more money. And because these folks were with us the whole way and understood the problems, they could all speak with one voice of support. And that has been something that has helped us along all of our trails.
Very interesting. Any other questions?
I had one for Julie. Julie, you talked about your leadership group, which sounds a bit like this committee that you're talking to. And you talked about the attributes of the people. Could you talk a little bit about how you were structured, how you worked with your councils or the authorities behind those participants? Whether you're a legal entity, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So the leadership team was, the Boardman Lake Loop, because it went through 3 different jurisdictions, we knew we had to get approvals from all those jurisdictions, and we knew we had to have support. So we actually set up a couple different structures to go through the whole design process. Again, the first one was the leadership team, and that was very small. That was the city manager, the county manager, who we went through 2 county managers during this process. So leadership changed. We did not use elected officials for the very reason that leadership would change. So we did stick to the staff. So city manager, township manager, or township supervisor, and county administrator. Those were the 3 representatives, because those would be the 3 governing bodies. And then TART was there. And I inserted ourselves for a very specific reason, was to, try to keep some cohesion. And I like a little bit of control, if I'm going to be honest, just a little. And I knew they would be asking things of me, so I wanted to be ready for that. Then we had the owners team, and that was, again, more staff from the city and the county and the township, people who would be asked to actually maintain this stuff or deal with the construction when it came. So that ownership team really went to town on the construction documents and the design. And that's where we talked about, okay, what's the weight limit here? And wait a minute, we're going to have a problem here because I remember back in 1990, this place collapsed because there was a sinkhole. And did you know that there's another dump? Those kind of really nitty gritty things that you wouldn't know about. But those staff are going to be asked to take care of that asset. So we wanted them around the table. Then we had the stakeholder group. And that stakeholder group was really more about the advocates around the room. We had elected officials there, plus staff, plus advocates, and I don't want to call them adversaries, but potential adversaries. So those were our three groups. The leadership team was intentionally made very small because you want to design through community, but decisions, to have a bunch of cooks in the kitchen doesn't work. And again, as leadership through elected officials change, that staff is navigating those relationships. So we called it the circle of trust because you really had to trust each other. And that was tested multiple times throughout we're in 6 years now, throughout the 6-year tenure. What we made sure to do was all that information went back down. So if decisions were made at the leadership team meeting, they were relayed to the ownership team, they were relayed to the stakeholder, and then they were relayed to the public. So the public, we tried to get it out as much as possible, but there was a hierarchy there to make sure that nobody felt surprised.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have a question. I mean, one issue that that is sort of top of mind in our community is public safety, and on the Blue Star Bridge in particular. And you know, we are trying to, with this process, partner with our local public safety to alleviate those concerns of, you know, public safety needing to get across town or to the beach in an emergency, or to the elementary school. And also occasionally when the highway shuts down, that traffic can all end up on 96 like once or twice a summer. So I'm just wondering how you partner with public safety in both of your communities and what that is like for you.
Well, I guess from like a separated pathway, non-motorized pedestrian route, in a couple different ways. Our local or county sheriff department has keys to all of our parks, well, it's one master key, which includes trail bollards, you know, along the various routes. There are also a lot of the new designed are called shear pin bollards, and so they can be run over by a fire truck, no problem in an emergency. A couple different ways too. One of the Basil Trail connecting Saginaw and Bay, right along the Saginaw River, there was significant flooding this past year in Saginaw, and actually the trail right of way, the former train right of way, was the highest point, and so emergency vehicles were traveling in and out. So there's some informal, I guess, ways that we collaborate a little bit, but those emergency routes. And then one other way is that we've also started to partner with our local 911 and our various trails in the county to add location stickers. Especially as you're going, you saw our trail map, there's a lot of intersections, and if you're new to the area and you're not exactly sure where you are on the trail, you can call, when you call 911, it gives you basically the GPS coordinates right where you're at. So none specific to your travel and concern there, but that's where maybe that pop-up style lane with input and feedback from public safety would be important.
And Holly, I'd echo Brian, we worked directly, again, before pen to paper. We brought the consultants in, they met with the road commission to talk about options to see what could work. So before you start designing something that's absolutely not going to fly, the road commission is there with you at the table. And we also, again, kept those folks, road commission and the owners. So our DPW director was in that owners team. So they had a hand in what trail engineering looked like. So they knew, what's going on. For us, frankly, the public safety aspect was a homeless issue we have in Traverse City. That was the biggest concern. That is what people wanted to talk about. That is the safety issue that they wanted to discuss. It was partly because we're off-road, so we don't have to worry about it. But even when we were within a road right of way, that one felt easier to address. The homeless issue was a lot harder. And that's where we did the stakeholder group, had those neighbors that weren't happy, and also had the police as part of that stakeholder group. We always design all of our trails to CPTED principles. So those are crime prevention through environmental design. And so we did have the police review, each iteration of design, but we had them engaged early. So some are social issues that we face, and some are physical. The physical feel a lot easier, even though they're hard. At least you can have some engineers duke it out at the table to figure out the right answer. It's a lot harder with a social issue.
I hear you. Okay, is there anyone else that has questions?
Brenda?
Brenda,
Thank you. This is for both Julie and Brian. I loved looking at the maps and the things that you displayed. Are those on your websites? Okay, did we get that in our packet? I don't know.
If you go
No,
to traversetrails.org, you'll find everything.
Okay, Travers what?
Trails.
Okay,
Ours is on our Saginaw County Parks website, but it's a few clicks down to the rail trail and then printable map. But I'll also email Holly the Google map that I shared. That was something that was built kind of independently and is not on our website because it's still kind of in process, but I'd be happy to share that. The one other map that I shared of the regional trail is from this Michigan Trails magazine, which is a advertising firm out of Rockford, essentially recognize the benefit of getting all these things mapped and in one place. And so they've, created all of these various maps, and it goes all the way across the state by community. They get local sponsors, bike shops, that kind of thing. That's a great resource as well. And they have a website, michigantrails.org, mitrails.org.
thank you.
and I think
One more, Holly. Julie mentioned that several of the governments in the area had contributed towards the budgeting when she showed her pie chart. And Brian, it may be the same thing in your area, but where do you find that the communities get that money? Does it come from their general budgets or some other way?
That's a great question. And we had a recent fight about that, so I can talk to that. In a township, I'm going to say it's very different. Garfield is a township, and that $800,000 contribution that they're making is straight out of their general fund. That is unusual. They are a large, wealthy township, so that's great. Most of my townships, if I can get $5,000 out of them, I'm so excited. If I can not get a lawsuit, some days that makes me excited. But their townships are, if you go early and you talk to them often enough, we have found support there. The county is not participating financially at this time, except through the brownfield. So brownfield funding is where the city and the county money is coming from. So the city has zero general dollars. It is all from a brownfield work plan that we submitted through the state, and we're successful. So brownfield it's a program, right, for areas that have experienced pollution through industrial areas. This happened because of the rail corridor I mentioned. So we worked in 2010, that was one of my first jobs, is to help rewrite that work plan to get, it was actually $11 million worth of brownfield funds for 3 projects, one of which was the Boardman Lake Loop. So that's a very difficult discussion. That's where the politics come in, and that's where a group like yours is really important to get that community buy-in to help your elected officials feel comfortable for spending money. Maybe it's an economic development fund that you have. Maybe there's a park fund that you have, general fund. You definitely want to make sure you have that support before you ask where you would be going. And we obviously don't dictate to our municipalities where they get the money from. Occasionally we'll poke because we know where the money is, but that really is making sure you're in conversations. And that pie chart that we developed from the beginning was super important to communicate with our partners. But Brownfield was huge in that, and everybody feels good when you get grants. So that was important, right, to show that leveraging of public dollars. So it's a mix. It's a mix of, and I can tell you right now that my townships come to me and say, we are not Garfield Township. Do not ask me for $800,000.
That more of the same, I think, in Saginaw. A couple of the projects I mentioned on that regional trail, some of the townships came to the table and said, we'll match our trust fund grant. The 100,000 needed, we can pull that out of our general fund or other areas. And then others, the regional trail has actually gone to the municipality and said, we'll pay to write the grant, we'll pay for your match, and we'll pay for the long-term maintenance. And so there's that varied level. The one other component I want to mention is, I think it's Act $53 or don't, that might not be it exactly, but basically 1%, 1% of your road monies have to go towards pedestrian projects. And so coordinating with the road commission, and if Saugatuck receives and executes their own funding projects, sometimes it's used on sidewalks, sometimes it is used for trails, and sometimes they're just making the shoulder 3 feet wider to meet a demand. And certainly one of those first two are more ideal to pair with a project that's really going to bring something to the community. And so they know how much of those dollars are planned, and you may have some opportunity there.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to mention, when we look at the maps of the trails in Traverse City and in Saginaw, one thing we need to understand is that MDOT, they prioritize trails that connect communities. So they encourage communities to be thinking about, how are you going to connect to Holland? How are you going to connect Douglas to Saugatuck to the township and beyond? So that is the goal. When you look at like this big, beautiful, sprawling trail, the goal of a lot of this funding is to build that sort of trail infrastructure. Did I say that correctly? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And DNR has the same requirements, Holly. Trust fund, if they will give you more points if you're connecting to a regional trail network. So you're exactly right. And I'd say DOT is a little bit better as long as it's about transportation. So be careful how you write your grants, because DOT doesn't want to talk about recreation. They, in fact, if you talk about it too much, so write to your audience is my tip.
All right, good to know. All right, well, thank you both. Are there any further questions? No? Okay, well, thank you so much. That was extremely helpful. We heard a lot of our own struggles, and I feel a little bit better, more context. The struggle is real. It takes a long time. There's a lot of partnership and community outreach that needs to be done. There's a lot of puzzle pieces and persistence. The 3 Ps, that's one of our takeaways today. So thank you both for giving us some of your time on Friday, and we'll be in touch. We'll talk to you again. So
we can't wait to ride your trails, right, Brian?
Absolutely.
I'm going to speak for him. I think so. I'm excited. All right, good luck.
You.
Anytime you need anything, we're here.
Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone. Thanks.
Okay, next I would like to look at reviewing next steps. And I would like it if Richard could just briefly talk about the engineering that still needs to be done, because when we're going to talk about the RFP, but I just sort of want to go over, Cindy and I talked about, well, what engineering still needs to be done. So let's just quickly touch base on that.
Okay, so the answer is mainly in that memo that was in your packet, which is up on the screen now. The only engineering that really has been done is one of the options over the bridge, that being the 2-lane option where Fleece and Brandenbrink did do the conceptual engineering drawings. The engineering has not really been done for the 3-lane option. You only saw some just general illustrations that were put together by the friends. The engineers they talked to us a little, but that was right when Fleece and Vandenbrink resigned. So they never really fully engineered that. And in the township, a couple of years previously, there was some engineering done about the pathway through Alamankier Park, but that was all. They didn't engineer the other option because at the time there was not as much interest in that. So that's what's been done. What needs to be done is laid out in that memo pretty well, and in the RFP draft. So rather than just read it to you, maybe it's better if I just see if there's any questions. I'm guessing our committee's pretty diligent and they had a chance to read through it.
Any questions? And if not, I think Richard and John will be happy to hear from anybody, to follow up. But I thought that was a good question. And next, Richard, do you want to talk about the RFP process? You've got 6 firms that look very promising and have some specific experience building trails.
Sure. Yes, so I think it's pretty clear that we need an engineering firm, and the committee has decided to proceed with that. The next step in the process would be to seek qualifications from different firms, which is essentially what we've done. We asked for recommendations from people like Julie Clark and others who do trails. We did our own research, going through their websites and checking out, who's done what kind of trail work, where are they located, how big are they, et cetera. And we focused on these 6 firms. And then there's actually one other one to throw in the mix, which is Abba & Marsh, which I think I had mentioned before. They are the firm that we had retained to do some feasibility studies in the southern end of the trail, that work is ongoing now. And since we know that firm and I can talk to it, we didn't ask them specifically to send us their glossy brochure, but they are based in Benton Harbor and have about 9 different offices in Michigan and Indiana, and about 115 employees, I believe. And they have done trail work, perhaps not as much as some of these other firms. I tried to do my own little cheat sheet to summarize it. The way we looked at it, John Adams and I talked about this earlier. Of the 6 firms that we sent you the materials on, 2 of them, the Smith Design Group and Fishbeck, are larger than the others. They are more focused on bigger projects generally, I would say. The Smith firm, it seems to be focused more on Detroit and Cleveland. Fishbeck is based in Grand Rapids, but they have over almost 500 employees, so they're quite large. And our sense was that we would be better off kind of putting them to the side, although we're happy to talk about it if anyone has a different view. But we just felt with larger firms like that, we're probably not going to be as important a client to them, and maybe not get their A team and not necessarily get as much of the focus. And that would narrow it down to the 4 remaining firms, C2AE, Whiteman, Beckett Rader, and Moore Bruggen. With those 4, there are differences. Beckett, Rader, and Moore are relatively small, with 25 and 37 employees based on what I could find on the internet. C2AE has over 100. Whiteman has over 140, 150. Beckett and Moore, I think both have, Moore has 1 office in Grand Rapids. Beckett has offices in Ann Arbor, Traverse City, and Petoskey. C2AE has their headquarters in Grand Rapids and 7 other offices, 4 in Michigan. Whiteman is based in Benton Harbor with 3 other offices in Michigan. The way we look at this and what we recommend is that we would send out an RFP to 4 or maybe 5 firms, and then we get their proposals back. Then we would look at those and narrow it down to perhaps 2, and then conduct interviews over Zoom with 2 of them. And the committee can be as involved in that as you want, or you can tell us to just go do it and get the proposals back. We would like at least a subcommittee of the committee to be involved in sorting through those proposals and narrowing it down to the 2 that we do interviews of, if you think that makes sense. And then absolutely the full committee should listen in on the interviews and make the final decision. But that would kind of be our proposed process. And the firms we would propose to send the RFP to. The RFP, as you saw from some of the language, is non-binding. We put in language to make it clear that it doesn't bind any municipality, and we're free to reject any of the proposals. So I don't think there's any risk that way. But let me just stop there and see if there are questions or suggestions about a different way to do it.
Well, I would just say that to keep on our track here, it sounds like next step would be that you would send out a non-binding request. I'll just say it's a request for proposal to anyone who's listening, because sometimes we speak in acronyms. There are some steps that need to happen. So we'll be working out the process of our intergovernmental agreement and how to go about choosing that engineering firm. So I would say that's, if we can get the RFP out, we are going to have to work very closely with our city managers on the next steps. This is when it gets really fun, people. So if we could get the RFP out, I would say stand by. We're going to have some additional processes. And as we do tri-community committees, this is a process that we're working out, is how do we make sure everybody has everything they need to take back to their councils, and that your attorneys are weighing in, and your city managers. To Julie's point, that we really have our city employees involved in that process. So if you could get the RFP out, I think that would keep us on our timeline, and we'll be working out some of these more technical process issues. And then if nobody has any comments about that, I wanted to just ask the committee if folks had any topics that they wanted more info about. I've been in touch with a dynamic young woman engineer in Minneapolis whose firm Tool actually wrote the 2020 AASHTO guidelines. And she has made herself available to come speak so we could do some programming about AASHTO. What's AASHTO? What does it mean? Why, why are, if we get TAP money through MDOT, we have to follow AASHTO guidelines, and AASHTO is an organization that basically writes the rules for how you engineer roads and bridges and bike trails, and all the Department of Transportations in all 50 states follow these guidelines. But we can learn about that. We could talk about maintenance agreements. We could bring, there are standards out there in the world about what does it cost to maintain an asphalt trail for, per mile, or I'm just wondering what would people like to know more about, and what could we focus on for the next couple of meetings as we're doing some of our, waiting for engineering to come back and getting some of our agreement work done.
Maybe,
Anyone?
maybe fire departments, for example, if Lansing put in a trail, I saw it in one of the engineers' bids, and I've been on that trail many times, the Riverfront Trail in Lansing, and I knew exactly what those pictures were. And part of that trail did go on some streetscapes and create traffic changes. And I wouldn't mind hearing, say, from a fire department or others, if it slowed their response times and just what the difficulties were in those areas might be a thought, if some of them are willing to come talk.
Okay, and that is a particular trail that is in Lansing.
Yeah, the Riverwalk Trail.
River. Okay.
And it connects into Kalamazoo Road and things like that. But they're, I don't imagine all those trails and every one of those engineers' presentations, I'm sure had similar issues. So whoever maybe ends up, the engineer brings those people in to talk to us from some of their past projects. I don't mean right now. We don't have a design, but I'm saying as it goes on, it could be a future topic to bring some of those people in before we final pick designs and things like that.
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent suggestion. Cindy?
I think Julie mentioned about how important it was to have the County Road Commission brought in early to make sure there are no obstacles that we can't overcome that might be controlled or regulated by the Road Commission. So yeah, I just would like to hear just a few comments from the Road Commission.
Okay. Well, Craig Atwood is on this meeting. I don't know, I'm putting you on the spot, but
that's okay.
Hi, Craig. I don't
how
know if
you
you like to introduce
Sure.
yourself.
Yeah,
or
I'm
weigh in
Craig Atwood.
here.
I'm the managing director of the Road Commission. I've been around here for 14 years, and I worked at a consulting firm prior to this, so I have quite a bit of experience in the federal aid process, and working with MDOT and all that type of stuff. Yeah, I guess we're here to participate to what extent we can. I know the 1% non-motorized funding requirement was mentioned previously as a requirement of Act 51. We exceed our requirement by a long way because we pave a lot of shoulders on our roads. So that's where our funding goes. So we don't have any financial participation for trail projects, but we historically have been on board with being the Act 51 agency that receives the funding, and then working with.
Can you
with
say what,
participants.
can you explain what Act 51 is for?
Yeah,
folks
so
that-
Act 51, it's actually Public Act 51, Public Act of 1951. It's how the whole funding structure for how road commissions, MDOT, cities and villages get the funding through the Michigan Transportation Fund, which is fuel tax and vehicle registrations. So it defines all that trickle down, you know, how that funding gets split up and for what. It also goes into all our requirements on how we operate. You know, we have a certain percentage of our funding we have to spend on primary roads versus local roads. We have a maximum we can spend on administrative costs. Also gives us some, you know, some of our authorities and responsibilities and what we can do. So it's an older public act, but it's had like, I want to say like 100 amendments over the years. So it still's pretty current with, you know, how we function today. And yeah, so federal money, or I think that's the state requirement too. They can only give that money to an Act 51 agency. So that could be the city of Saugatuck or the city of the village of Douglas. They're also Act 51 agencies, or the road commission in this situation, but not the township and not the Friends of the Blue Star Trail.
So only cities are recognized under.
City,
Act
yeah,
50.
cities, villages, whoever receives Act 51 dollars, that Michigan Transportation Fund from the state to maintain roads. Those are the Act 51 agencies.
So when
And
we
Craig-
actually, go ahead.
Sorry, Holly. Craig,
Go
the
ahead.
reason, just to explain what the reason for that is, why did they only do it to the Act 51 agencies? My understanding is so they have some control over what happens to the money, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure on why they limit it to that, other than that's the process that's been established for other funds. And maybe that's just easier for them. I don't know that for sure. My guess is with the federal dollars, that could be a federal requirement that the state's following. But like TAP funds, I think those are just strictly state money. I don't know, you know, why the requirements are for that, but I think actually townships can receive those funds though, because there's been park projects and things done within townships with that.
Our city manager is going to weigh in here, Karen.
Craig could probably add to what I'm going to say. Act 51 money goes to townships through the road commission because they maintain township roads. So because the city maintains our own roads and our own sidewalks, so forth, we get the money directly. So we're an Act 51 community, but the township money goes to the road commission because the road commission maintains their roads.
Yeah, I guess that'd be a fair way to look at it too. Yep. Yeah, but the township doesn't receive the dollar amount. They receive the benefit of the maintenance work, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
correct. Yeah.
Right.
I also wanted to bring up the 1% of the money
Mhm.
that Saugatuck gets that is specifically for non-motorized, for sidewalks or shoulders. I would be surprised if Saugatuck doesn't already spend 10 times that. So I doubt if there's any money left over in that 1%. It's not very much money.
Yeah, that's the same boat we're in too. We far exceed our minimum requirement, but
Yeah. I've never worked anywhere that they didn't far exceed the minimum. If you contribute general fund money to roads, which we do, you far exceed the minimum.
is there any other questions that I can help answer?
Do you foresee any obstacles with bike trails that are on our existing infrastructure? Like on the curbs of Blue Star Highway through the township?
I don't see any real big obstacles along Blue Star and Saugatuck Township because we have a very wide right of way in there. When you get south of M89 in Ganges Township and down into Casco Township, that could be more of an issue. Most of that drops back to a 66-foot wide right of way. But everything in Saugatuck Township, I believe, is 100-foot plus. So it just gives us, more wiggle room in there. The road itself isn't necessarily much bigger, but we have all that extra right of way to work with, which is a lot easier for the Friends group. They don't have to worry about getting additional right of way for the trail if they can make it fit within the existing road right of way. So. Yeah, I think the biggest challenges, which you already know, are getting across an MDOT owned bridge structure.
Right.
Um,
That's a huge
yeah,
thing. And
right.
Getting the easements through the Ganges and Casco townships is also going to be a big thing. If you really are
Yep.
striving for that connectivity, those are going to be much more difficult
Right.
than painting some lines on the Blue Star Highway in the township.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep, I see that. Other than the bridge, the MDOT bridge in Saugatuck Township portion, nothing big is coming to mind. I mean, there'll be some design things to work through and, requirements to meet to make sure there's no detrimental effects to putting a trail in. But other than that, I don't see any real big obstacles in Saugatuck Township anyways.
Thank you, Craig.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much for weighing in, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, I'll try and sit in whenever I can.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely, you're in the loop now.
Okay.
So you're
Very good.
You're on the team. You're on the team now, Craig. Whether you want to be or not. So
Right.
thank you.
Yep.
Is there, I guess this would be a good time to do committee member comments. So if you could just, if anybody would like to, we could just pipe in and if you have any thoughts about what we talked about today or some topics you might want to learn about, or just any comments in general, just chime in.
I have some. Can I go ahead?
Yes, Brenda, go ahead. Sorry.
I think this was one of Brian's comments when he was talking about his area. Interestingly, my daughter had a house that was adjacent to the Prairie Path in Illinois, which is just phenomenal. I miss it terribly. And it also was, her length of the path was also headed to the train station, but also we have a homeless office that's called DuPage area. Anyway, it's Pat's. So a lot of homeless. It doesn't affect the home prices along there. I mean, if anything, they just did this, and they have, I don't know. I just wanted to mention that in case that was ever a concern here. But they had kind of a double thing: the train station and then pads, which is what they called it, where they would have to go, and they would use the prairie paths as a direct path right there. But so I just wanted to mention in case anybody was concerned about that.
Thank you.
Karen? My house is on the White Pine Trail. Love it. I've never even thought about the homeless, but also I wanted to bring up what the gal from Traverse said too about community support. White Pine Trail, even though it evolved into a state park linear trail, is all maintained by volunteers. And they're out there plowing right now, I bet. Well, if it's snowing, they are, but trees disappear within hours. It's kind of amazing how that thing is taken care of. And one more thing, which it may not ever fly here, but the township I live is so devoted to trails, they voted themselves an additional millage to build more. So
try that.
It does happen once in a while.
Interesting. All right. Anyone else have comments?
Actually, Park Township in Holland also has a dedicated millage for trails. And I think that's a great way to judge the support of your municipalities when you say, do you want this? And are you willing to pay for it?
Okay.
I'll say this because I'm leaving. A lot of the people that would be paying for it in Saugatuck don't have a vote here because they live elsewhere. So something to think about.
That's true. Anyone else have any comments? Richard?
Yeah, Holly, I just want to confirm that the committee has now authorized us to go ahead and send out the RFP.
It's my understanding that you can go ahead and send out the RFP, but we'll need to do some, before we take it any further than that, because basically the RFP, you're just inviting engineering firms to respond and to bid, and then we would take it from there in a more official way, more structured way.
Right, just one step at a time.
Richard,
Yeah.
Richard, really an RFP or an RFQ?
RFP, I feel, Cindy, we've already done the RFQ.
Okay.
That's what those attachments were that I circulated.
And
Yeah,
what are they going to be bidding on?
Well, yeah, bidding is not maybe the right word because,
Okay.
you know, we're still, we haven't, you're right, we have not yet decided on a final design. So, or a route, so they can't really give you a binding bid.
Exactly.
It's going to be more, you know, how they would staff it, who will be their project manager. They'll probably go into more detail about trail work they've done in the past and why that qualifies them to do this one. You will ask them for a work plan. You know, how would they approach this? And then, you know, we'll have the opportunity to talk to them in more detail with the two finalists at the end.
Karen?
Holly, because the Friends of the Blue Star want the communities to hire the engineering and design firm, we have to put together a intergovernmental cooperation agreement. And no RFP could be accepted because it's a contractual obligation without that. And that's what's different this time through is because the Friends did the hiring direct last time, they could do that. But this time they're kind of obligating the cities to take a bigger role.
Okay, thank you.
And the township, I should say.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks, Richard. And thanks, Cindy, for correcting that. Does anyone else on the committee have any comments to make at this time? Good.
Holly, yeah,
Yes.
I just wanted to, Holly?
Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to assure Richard that I do support, I thought this was a well-done RFP, and I do support you guys moving ahead and getting that out in the way that you described it. You know, it was a lot of information to go through, but I skimmed the qualifications of many of these firms, and they seem very well qualified. I noticed that a couple of them have as principals landscape architects, which is something one of our speakers urged us to include. So you might give that some weight as these come back as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. And that is something we definitely have included, is to for them to tell us if there will be a landscape architect on their project team. Because yeah, I agree with you. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point, Ken. So, all right. Is that it for committee comments? Okay, I'd like to open up for public comments and at this time, and if anyone speaks, please keep your comments to 3 minutes. we have any? Dan Fox? Go ahead.
Thank you, Holly. It's been a long meeting. Just two specific, hopefully quick points. The first one concerns transparency, and particularly transparency within and around this committee. I was pleased after the last meeting, which some of you may remember included my pulling a communication back because it had been edited mysteriously without my knowledge. I was pleased that after the meeting, I got contacted by the city manager, the acting city manager in Saugatuck, to say that she was the one who had taken it upon herself to edit that email, as I say, and she apologized using that word, and I appreciate that. As I say, I bring it up not to rehash, but simply because, to my knowledge, that was not communicated to the rest of this committee, and you need to know and have confidence that you are getting open, unedited feedback and input. Lots of loose talk about public input, but sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't, but you got to deal with all of it. So yours truly included. So that's the first point on transparency. The second point relates directly to the second communication I sent this committee, which is in your packet, but not surprisingly was not discussed today. So I'll discuss it. And that relates to something, Holly, you mentioned earlier, and I've heard mentioned through the years regarding this trail. The MDOT requirement for connectivity, trail connectivity, so as to allow for funds to support the trail. And I understand how important that is. I mean, and it's good public policy. I mean, nobody wants trails that start and stop and don't go on and dead end and so forth. Like, I mean, the trails in Traverse or the Saginaw ones are beautifully interconnected. In that regard, in the connectivity regard, one of the, maybe the major obstacle to the trail continuing lies just south of Douglas. It's not the Blue Star Bridge. Blue Star Bridge, there are approaches that acknowledge safety and can plan around that. The obstacle south of Douglas, immediately south of Douglas, is the interstate bridge, Blue Star Highway over 196. And there's a second one of those on the path of the trail down in Ganges, a narrower bridge over the interstate. To my knowledge,
Dan, we have run out of time.
wait a minute, there's not even a clock on here. How can I know?
Yeah, I've been timing for her.
Well, there's got to be a clock on the screen. Let me just finish my comment. I've listened to an hour and 3/4 already. My only point is somebody needs to get a handle on what it would take to get the trail over those bridges, and in particular the one just south of Douglas, because otherwise we're back in the same situation. Even if you had everything done from that point to south of Douglas, you got a bridge you can't get across, a 3-lane bridge, an exit lane and 2 traffic lanes. That's it. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks for keeping score, Brenda.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize Garnett Lewis.
Hi, Holly. Calling from beautiful Key West and enjoyed this very good presentation by both, I think her name was Tracy, I think, from Traverse City, and Brian Leschel from Saginaw. I knew him when he was a wee babe, and it's nice to see him in that role that he's in. But to see how far both those trails have progressed in the time that I've lived in Michigan. As an avid runner, I have utilized both those trails. And so when you say non-motorized, those are 2 truly non-motorized trail. They're very attractive to not only bikers, but avid runners and runner groups as well, and have really contributed to the community. But this was so very informative, and I really appreciate you doing this. I appreciate the gentleman from the Road Commission being on. It's great. I think the way in which you're approaching this is very informative and very transparent. It's helpful for folks to see that you're tackling the issues holistically and recognizing that while there are barriers, those can be overcome with the right attitude and the right people, which with what you have, you all will be able to get this accomplished. I have no doubt. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Garn. I'd like to recognize Karen.
Thank you, Holly. Just wanted to wish you every success going forward. I ride my bike here every summer. I look forward to having that connection too. And I haven't rode the Saginaw Trail, but I've ridden every one of those ones she's mentioned up near Traverse and Leelanau and all that. When I struck that phrase from Mr. Fox's letter and apologized to him, and I copied you, I did intend for that to go to the whole committee. And I encourage you to send that to the whole committee and highlight the phrase that I struck, please.
Okay. Is there, I'm sorry, Karen, what did you say? You went out on me.
Oh, what, did anything come through?
Just your last sentence went out.
Oh, well, I said I encourage you to send it to the whole committee. Mr. Fox's original email with, highlight the phrase that I struck before I put it in the packet. I have no problem with sending it out.
Okay, I will do so. I will do so so that Mr. Fox's letter in its entirety appears on the record in our next packet. So thank you. Is there anyone else from the community that would like to speak at this time? Okay. Thank you very much. I know it was a long meeting, so I appreciate everyone's patience, but it's a nice segue into your happy hour. You definitely got your time in on the bike trail. And as always, feel free to reach out. If there's anything you want to discuss to the Friends of the Blue Star, or if you have something on your mind. And if there's no further business to discuss, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is Marcy. I'll motion to adjourn this meeting.
Okay. Do we need to roll call again?
Do we have a second?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So many roll calls. All right. I need a second and then we'll roll call.
Who seconded it? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay.
So Marcy and
Ken,
Ken, okay.
all right. And then, so motion to adjourn, Brenda Marcy,
Yes.
Kathy Moradian,
Yes.
Cindy Osmond,
Yep.
Ken Trester,
Yes.
Jerry Donovan,
Yes.
John Adams,
Yes.
Richard Donovan.
Yes.
I'll go back to Cindy, but she's probably busy. Cindy Osmond.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, there she is. All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Holly. Great job.
Hey,
Thank
Holly?
you. Yes.
I learned this lesson when I was trying to do the milfoil committee, why there's so many roll calls. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you perfectly.
It's because it's on Zoom. Normally you can just say, all aye and all any nays, but it's because it's on Zoom, you have to do one by one so that everyone knows who's saying what.
Okay.
So
Thank
that's
you.
the reason. When we go back to across the table, you won't have to do that anymore.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems like a lot. And I guess that's probably explains that I'm just not used to it. So
I wasn't either.
all right.
I had to be educated.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you all. Cindy, how you doing?
Busy, but I'm hanging in there.
Okay. Was that helpful?
I think so. I think so that still it's early to send out the RFP if we don't know what we're RFPing for. But I guess his answer did make some kind of sense.
Well, one of the problems is that, it's very difficult, like, to bring chief in and talk about public safety if we don't have an engineer, right? Because then it's just all of us going, I think this should probably be okay. And so really some of the substantial work that we need to do, we need to have an engineer weighing in. And I think that's, I mean, this all feels very chicken and egg to me, but I think it's going to be hard to do much of anything without an engineer. And maybe it's because, Fleece, they dropped, that connection dropped. And so normally I think you would be at this point with an engineer. It's kind of like we're trying to do this without an engineer. And that's probably unusual because things have just gotten a little bit out of order by having lost that.
I kind of think that having the chief bring up his concerns and then turning it over to the engineer and letting them say, this is how we've overcome it. This one can't be overcome. And so you're going to have to live with it. I just think that's a different way of doing it. But that's my opinion. And I really haven't been involved in projects like this in the past.
Well, and then the other issue, of course, is chief is really busy right now, right? I mean, he is so busy with vaccines, so the timing is sort of good. But I think I'm thinking, and we'll see what the committee thinks, that it might be good for when the chief, I mean, we've got the 2-lane and the 3-lane, and they're pretty well engineered. So, I mean, the 3 still needs a little bit of work, but when he really is able to sit down, I'd like his time to mean something. Like I'd like, Brett and, Chief of Police in Douglas and Janik to just have it like, okay, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, and to move on. Because I feel like there's a bit of a danger of well, let's do it this way. What about this? What about that? And I don't know that is really being as respectful of everyone's time.
Right. I agree with that. They've already expressed what their concerns are to a large degree, at least at the bridge.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like there's so many points that we can go off track, and that's one of them that we could spend a lot of time on, getting everybody's needs addressed just around that public safety issue. And there could be like a lot of feedback, but I feel like that really is a conversation between public safety and engineers at the end of the day. And I feel like the community would feel good about that. That's my opinion, but we'll see.
I still feel a little bit like the Friends are asking Saugatuck and Saugatuck Township and Douglas to do things that they're not really comfortable with so they can enhance their ability to get a grant in the future for the southern half of the trail. I'll tell you, the township is going to probably recommend paint some lines on the road. They're not, they don't want any more disasters like they already have by the fire department where the bike trail caved in, and down by Dairy Days where a car ran into the trail and knocked it all down, and it's going to be $50,000 to fix it. So
right. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the township has a lot of trails. You have a lot of trail already, and you don't really have the money for maintenance. But one thing that I liked about the meeting today is hearing from Julie, and we've heard this before from Becca Wasso, is how you engage the community so that you have people that can do maintenance. And that's kind of a challenge to me and a challenge to the Friends that, you know, we really do a better outreach to the community and start to build that muscle of, you know, that people who are willing to, you know, put some skin in the game. And I mean, if they can't write a check, maybe they'll show up with their hacksaw or whatever, you know, they're willing to, you know, come and plow the snow or whatever, you know. So, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and you know, it's a balancing act. I'm not, you know, we have to keep this idea of connectivity in mind when you get these grants, and it's a great idea. I mean, it's good for us for our economy if people can ride to Holland or if they can possibly ride to South Haven. I'm not so concerned about what happens in Casco and Glen, though. That's really the Friends problem in my mind. I am very focused on our map of what we are trying to build, you know, from Holland and the Blue Star connecting into Douglas. Like, if that's all that ever gets built, works for me. You know, I mean, that's, if honestly, if I can get from Saugatuck across the bridge to Douglas, I'll be happy. You know, I just want to connect what we have, and you know, I would consider that a win. But it's, yeah, you see, that was some good perspective. It takes a long time to do these
That's
trails.
right. That's right. When you said it's going to take a long time, I want to say, yeah, probably about 30 years.
It's like, oh my God. Yeah, that was sobering. I'm going to go have a drink on that note for sure.
Very good.
All right. Thank you so much for making time. And thanks, Erin.
Yep.
Thanks, Holly.
All right. Take it
Bye-bye.
easy. Bye.